Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today with a very special guest, and you're going to be staying curious about this guest here. We welcome Mike Ciannilli. Mike, welcome to Stay Curious.
It's my pleasure, Mark. Thank you for the invitation to be here.
Well, the invitation come from some of your friends. Thank you, Mike Leinbach and John Tribe, both, for saying you need to have Chachi on your show. And when I've mentioned Chachi, everybody's eyes perk up, ears perk up, eyes get bright. I'm so excited to have Mike with us on Stay Curious because we hit it off about the space history, what our museum's about, and what you're currently doing as director of the Apollo Challenger Columbia Lessons Learned program, which this is one of the centerpieces of it here, our green screen. I get goosebumps already, Mike. Look at that, just thinking about it. This is one of the most amazing exhibits I've ever seen. And this gentleman had a lot to do with it, and you won awards on it. And we're going to talk a little bit about when that happened. You're on Today's Show and stuff like that back in the day, but this is the tribute to the Columbia and Challenger astronauts like none other. Very moving, and in my mind, very spiritual. And it is also a spiritual place to a very well-known astronaut that I'm going to end the show with here, in taking what I consider one of my most poignant photos I've ever made. Welcome to Stay Curious. Marty Winkle is my co-producer. Hi, Marty.
Hey, Marty.
Hey guys, how you all doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
Good.
Marty, of course, worked the shuttle program on the SSME engines as a LPS manager.
Wow. Okay.
We've done about 1,010 episodes together.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
1,010.
Born out of the
Oh, my
pandemic.
God.
In fact, March 23rd, 2020 is our first episode on Facebook on my phone. And here it's come to talk to a lot of great people that want to be on our show to help preserve the birth of the American space age in a way that we feel nobody else is. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and how did you got interested in space, or just fall in your lap?
Absolutely. Well, first I want to say, thank you so much for the invitation. And what you guys are doing here is absolutely fantastic. And everyone out there, you've got to see this museum in Titusville. It is incredible, an incredible museum. It's my first time here after all these years, so I'm excited. A little late to the dance party, but I'm so excited. And you got so many exhibits on, not only educational, but preserving history. And as you said, this is the nation's space program and represents the world in itself. So what you have here represents decades and decades of American spirit and history. So thank you for doing that. You all do it tremendously well. And you've got to see this place, honestly.
Our executive director, Karan Conklin, has been involved with this museum 20 years and been the director for 6 years. And our team here is a small group of passionate people, or we wouldn't have stuck it out this far.
It shows.
Marty.
It shows.
But I'm blessed of doing things that I was doing when I was an 8-year-old kid, loving astronauts and astronomy. And we're going to talk about some of that. But where's your hometown and family like?
Yeah, I grew up a little ways from here, upstate New York. So Syracuse, New York, where I was born and raised, far from Florida and the Space Coast. But for something was in me from the beginning. I can't tell how or why, but my folks tell me when I was 4 years old, that's all I would talk about was space and rockets and launching people into outer space. And I would somehow, and I don't still know how I did this, I'd run home from playing with the other kids, and there was a launch on. Somehow I knew it. I'd demand the TV put on the channel so I could watch the launch back in the 70s, and it's never left me. It's been part of me, and it's been an honor ever since to be on this ride.
Well, you've been quite a ride. We're going to do some business here in just a minute, but we want you to know that Michael and Mike Ciannilli?
No, perfect, yeah.
Ciannilli?
You said it better than I do.
Okay, all right, Ciannilli. But you're known as Cha-Cha. And Chachi, Chachi. I'm thinking Shirley Muldowney's Cha-Cha.
That might be the dance.
Drag
He's
race.
thinking of the dance. That's
Chachi.
beyond my skill level.
Like I said, he leads this important lessons learned program that we hope to have him on many times as a outlet for you to talk about things you're doing. But previously you were a test director for the space shuttle program, leading the entire launch team through your countdown activities. So, and processing oversight of the orbiters being launched, and landing recovery director also. So you were a right-hand person out among the masses in the launch control to Mike Leinbach and
worked
Bob Seek probably.
A lot of launches with Mike. A lot of launches
And
with those folks.
Mr. Harrington. Did you do anything with
He was
Jim
just
Harrington?
before my time coming in.
Yeah.
Jim was just ready to leave. A lot of
So,
legends.
a lot of legends that we've had on our Stay Curious program. Landing recovery director, Marty, you know what I'm thinking? Were you involved with the RTLS?
We were
Return
ready
to
for
launch
it.
site.
We were ready for it any single
We'll
time.
have to do a program on that
Yeah.
one time,
Oh, that
just
was-
that one time.
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But he has led the creation and development of the internationally recognized Forever Remembered exhibit at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, just about 10 miles from where we're sitting. Received numerous awards, as you could imagine, including the prestigious Silver Snoopy Award. We've got Norm Carlson's in there in our
Oh, dear.
I didn't
Oh, my God.
is in the case in there where I showed
Another
you
legend
that.
right there, Norm.
Yep, the beans are go, right?
Yeah, beans are go.
That was the
Beans
good
and
luck
cornbread.
charm of launching STS-1 was a big old pot of pinto beans, and then got a little out of hand. Linebox said at the end there. Everywhere smelled like pinto beans on a launch on there. So we love bragging about you there. We're going to learn a little bit about this lessons learned, like all of you didn't have been there will know it's a very emotional thing, but we want to shout out to the remembrance of the General Tom Stafford. Gene Wright's here, a friend of Chachi, to come and cheer him on. And Gene, you certainly knew the general well, lived a long life. You got 3 stars up there for his general. Do you have any doings with the great Tom Stafford?
I've seen him. I met him in person. Legends. And I use that word, but it's he came and captured these people's essence. The legends that were on the rockets, the legends that were behind the rockets. Incredible. And it just goes back to one simple thing. People say, how do we do this? How do we do these crazy, amazing things? And the secret sauce is the people.
Yeah.
It's people like Tom, General Stafford, that
Passionate, dedicated
passionate,
people.
dedicated. Like I said, both, maybe you're sitting on the rocket, maybe you're sitting behind a console, but that passion, the dedication, the talent, the love of what they do, it's unparalleled. And that's the secret sauce, how we're able to do these things.
Did you know that he was considered the father of the stealth bomber
Incredible.
in the Air Force? And to the day he died, Monday at age 93, he was chairman of a board that astronaut Jim Adamson's on, who I see him frequently, on the space station safety board up there and implementation. This man has done great things for the American-Russian relationship, like none other, and of course the famous handshake with his friend Alexei Leonov. Not sure when the funeral is, but I know it's in Weatherford, his hometown in Oklahoma. I was hoping they were going to have a viewing here, but I don't think so. So God bless a great American. Truly, where are these American heroes, Chachi? I mean,
they're all over. They're all over the country. And we get the ones you see on TV, and there's so many more that never get a chance to go on TV or in front of folks.
yeah.
But the talent in this nation and the passion in this business, what we do, is incredible. And hopefully there's a lot of young folks out there watching that'll be taking the torch from us in a few years and going to carry that passion forward,
Well, that is part of the Forever Remembered and the Apollo exhibit, is that we inspire the next generation to do the best we can.
Our responsibility.
Yeah, in there. Let's talk a couple minutes here about 321 Day, March 21st. We're celebrating Ozzy Osbourne, who died in August of natural causes. You ever know Ozzy?
No.
All right, he was a character out of Spaceview Park. If you came down from Findlay, Ohio, where I grew up, and saw your only rocket launch, you would remember that rocket launch, and then you remember this guy with a shock of white hair doing the countdown and giving you updates, and then grabbing his tip jar as you left. Or I loved hearing him yell "scrub." Well, he brought the area code 321 here. It was going to be up in New York area when Orlando got so big they had to split the area code here. And he lobbied in 1999, and the area code came here coming up 25 years ago. And we have 321 Day at the parking lot welcome center, right? And also at 321 have a eulogy type of thing for him. There's I got that out of sequence there. Let me put Ozzy right there. There's
Okay.
Ozzy.
Excellent.
His Rocket Hobo patch. That before I forget, I'm going to give you a Rocket Hobo
thank
patch
you.
because that's what you are
That's
now.
awesome. Well, thank you.
In there, yeah. Show the Rocket Hobo
Yep,
touch.
there you go.
So, what a character! What a great guy! I put our sign out there, sandwich board that we always put out at launches, and people yell at me, "We miss Ozzy," such a fixture out
And a
there.
legacy.
And a legacy. And we hope that this creates a 3-2-1 remembrance on the first day of spring or around that day. Of course, it's a big kickoff to our tourism industry here. But Godspeed, Ozzy. We want to just also promote, I threw this in there. Terry White, Gene Wright, and Gary Studi were three of our guests last week. Just go to YouTube, put in American Space Museum. You'll see Stay Curious all over the place. So catch up with our shuttle manager. I call him the garage mechanic and his pit crew.
Terry.
You know Terry.
I know Terry. Great guy.
And that's Jean's here, her beautiful book, So Sisters. And Gary Studi is one of the world-renowned authorities of growing food in space. And I don't think that's being addressed like they need to if we're going to go to Mars. But there's Ozzy. Show up. We got a band playing 7 to 9. It's going to be a great event over there. And then we're gearing up for Shuttle Fest 3, April 13th. More than just astronomy missions. Astronaut J.D. Bartow is going to talk about his involvement of the Astro 1 and 2 missions. We're going to talk about Ulysses and Ulysses and Galileo had people chaining themselves to the fence because of the RTGs, radio thermal generators, that pilot of STS-41, Mike Leinbach, says could not have lit a toaster, the RTGs on there. So anyway, we're going to enjoy all of that. Actually, it's 34 was his mission there. So our third event to do this. Thank you, Tim Gagnon, for that beautiful artwork. So let's get into you a little bit here. Marty, yes.
I was going to say, show the medal.
Oh, show the medal. Okay. Yeah, all right. There you go. We've got a medal here. Well, trying to show. Let me get that frog out of my throat a minute. We have put Tim Gagnon's shield, we're calling it, on a medallion. Marty just got these in today. Look at that,
Wow.
Chachi.
Beautiful. Absolutely
Beautiful little medal there. We've got the American Space Museum
wow.
on the
Look at
back
that.
there.
Beautiful.
So just debuting these, just came in the house there. And how much we
Very
selling
nice.
these for, Marty?
You got to get at least $10, if not more.
Oh yeah, we'll probably go $20 on these. But it's timeless. It's just you coin collectors out there. There's our Shuttle Fest shield to Tim Gagnon, the patch guy. He likes to be known. Tim has, he said, 19 patches orbiting the Earth on the International Space Station
Wow.
that he and his friend Jose Georges, a Spaniard, have done down there. So
Pretty impressive.
yeah, he's a great guy. Another guy you will liaison through Stay Curious to you.
Yeah.
He preserves space history in his own way by doing 50th anniversary patches of the Leonov Ed White spacewalk. It was the same year, 65, and things like that. But
That's incredible.
so your knees were knocking as you were 200 feet up above.
Who's that young guy over there? I don't know who that. I don't recognize that young guy.
That's a Rochesterian if I ever saw one up there. You didn't say Rochester. You said you're from Syracuse. Ozzy is from Syracuse also.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Ozzy
okay.
Osbourne. Yeah. In there.
And
So,
Eileen Collins. Yep. She's right down the way.
Yeah,
I think
Eileen
it's,
Collins. Yeah, I always think Rochester, being in the news business, and we
we're
like
very proud of them.
exactly. So, do you know what bird that is? And I know it's not Columbia because I don't see the black
That's
on the wing.
actually that was actually a mixed. I remember having the picture taken. That was a mixed emotion picture, because that's actually Atlantis. That's day before launch, the last launch ever of the space shuttle.
Oh my gosh!
And going out there a couple days before launch and seeing the vehicle for the last time, realizing not only are you looking at something unbelievably beautiful and cool, but realizing you're never going to experience this moment again it's a bittersweet moment. So you're smiling, but in the back of your mind is, this is the last one, but I'll never forget that.
Awesome day.
Yeah.
You know, you always think of what you're doing will never end,
Yeah.
you know, and like stay curious, someday we'll have an end, and it might be dramatic or it might be just, you know, a little fizzle. We just not doing it. All things come to pass, George Harrison wrote in a good song. But you were along for the ride. How did this happen to you?
It's
How did you end up
amazing.
on the Space Coast from Syracuse, New York?
I'm the luckiest kid from New York, I'll tell you. I really am. I always wanted to be in the space program, so I went through my whole elementary school, middle school, high school, wanting to do this. Got into FIT, Florida Institute of Technology, down in Melbourne, because I wanted to be as close as I could to the space program.
Pretty
So I
young
figured-
campus back in those days.
Young campus, my God, we had dirt roads and telephone poles for bumper stops. And
Is
it was,
that
yeah,
right?
it was back in the dot like it looks today. It's much more.
Oh, it's a
grandiose.
facility now.
It
yes,
is. It's
very.
incredible. And so I said, well, that's as close I can find to the Kennedy Space Center. That works for me. So I got a degree in space science, interned out here for a bit, and it was interesting. Joined a organization called American Institute Aeronautics Astronautics because I wanted to meet more people and get involved in it. Had the honor to be the president for 2 years in a row, and I was getting closer to graduation. And I was like, okay, and I was meeting some of the players, so meeting people in different shuttle systems and different folks. And it was kind of at the point of almost being ready to pick where you wanted to work. So I was really putting a lot of legwork in to do that. And then all of a sudden, Murphy's Law would have it, a spending freeze came and a hiring freeze came with it.
Mm.
And that was it. So I graduated thinking it might be, well, this would be a couple of weeks. Those couple of weeks turned into a couple of months. I said,
What
well,
year was that, Chachi?
Yeah, well, I graduated 90, end of 90. So this was 91
Okay.
in the early 90s. So I said, well, a couple of weeks won't be that bad. Well, then it was a couple of months. Well, a couple of months won't be that bad. Well, those couple of months turned into years. There was just no hiring going on. And so I had to do other things to make ends meet for those years. But I said, I'm going to outlast this. There's no way I'm not going to get out there. I'm going to figure out a way to go do that. And I was kind of stubborn, I guess you call it, right? And through the help of my family and just being stubborn and thick-headed to do it. And then finally had the honor in 1996 to become the first United Space Alliance hire when they started the program in June of 96. And ever since then, I just keep pinching myself that this is actually real.
Huh.
Yeah.
June of 96 had a comet, Hyakutake, and then 97 was Hale-Bopp, so see, you had to wait for the omens
It had
from the sky to come
planetary
around
alignments,
there.
all the comets had to line up.
So-
And,
All right, got to get a little backyard astronomy in there this week, okay? Well, awesome that you had the perseverance to stick with your dream. A lot of people feel defeated on this path we call life, and that's a great story just to never give up. I mean, I've had some real crazy jobs myself that some were kind of embarrassing. You're kidding me? I'm doing this, but I may have done it 6 weeks or 6 months, but I had to do it to reach something else.
Yeah, and I think it's retrospect. At the time, you wouldn't have gone through it, right? None of us would take the hard path in life, right? If we had a choice of hard path, easy path, I think we'd all kind of go, yeah, easy path works for me. We don't get that choice. But I'm glad in retrospect because it teaches you about yourself. It makes you perhaps a different person in some ways, and you grow and you learn. So I look back at those years and painting houses and janitorial work and selling shoes and clothes and everything else I could possibly, teaching in science
that's what I'm
museums.
talking about.
Yeah, all those things, you kind of put them together to make it work. But I'm so glad I did that because not only learned about myself and it hopefully grew as a result, but if anything, I even appreciate more of having the honor to do what I do today, realizing how hard it was and the chance of, it might not have worked, right? So they have the honor to do that. So I'm kind of glad in retrospect I went through that little bit of time.
Well, we're talking with Mike Ciannilli here. He is the director of the Lessons Learned program for Apollo, Challenger, and Columbia. We're going to look at this beautiful display that Mike's going to tell us how he designed it. One of the beautiful things I love is of course, as a photographer, the concentric lines, and that is a very important statement that is highlighted there by President Ronald Reagan behind us there. Would you tell us what that says?
Absolutely. Well, I want to say this was a team effort. That project, I had the honor to lead it, but there was some unbelievably fantastic talent that went into it. The design folks, the planning folks. Louis Barrios was a great person that I worked alongside with as a designer, and we brought in talent from around Central Florida and even around the country to help us. So there's a lot of talent, leadership support behind it. So, like I said, I had the honor to lead it, but there's a lot of folks that I had just privileged to learn from and to be part of. And so the concept is you want to make the cruise accessible, right? So how do you make the cruise accessible to people? Because these are heroes. These are the nation's heroes. These are, they're legends. They're almost untouchable, right? But we didn't want people to feel that. We wanted people to identify with them. So when folks came in and kids walked in, they could have some identification with these heroes and hopefully inspire them to follow in their footsteps. So a lot of the themology, we can go through some of that, but
Yeah,
a lot of it
we're
is very
gonna
specific.
go through that here.
President Reagan was an unbelievably central part in the Challenger. He was the president, of course, at the time, in 1986, and he gave that iconic speech from the White House of what this meant to a nation. So, so when we were looking at how to bring in the feeling of what it was like in 1986 to live through this, President Reagan's quotes and his speeches, went through them very carefully to pick out the right quotes. There's a bunch of them, but we picked one to bring his presence in there, and it tells you why these folks did what they did, why they took the risks getting on top of a rocket, why we do what we do in the launch business, and it's truly the brave. It's about the brave, right?
Right.
We do these things, and it's not easy. It's not, as President Kennedy says, we do it because it's hard, but it takes the brave and the determination to go ahead and be successful.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the set up here, just a little more detail there. I want to give you a little more scrapbook stuff there. There's Mike Leinbach. Thank you, Mike, for efforting this gentleman to us there. You're getting something space flown, I would guess.
Mike's kind enough to give me an award of some point at that. And Mike, I mean, I can't say enough. I could spend 20 shows just talking about people. It's the people, like I mentioned at the very beginning, the people make this place special. And Mike's one of those folks. He's not only a legend out there, but a mentor to me and a friend now. And just an incredible person who I look up to. And that's us back in the fire room back in the day.
Yeah, he's we did a tremendous question and answer with him. He came on about a month ago, and we just had some Q&As, and I got 3 or 4 astronauts to ask him some Q&As. In fact, one of them was, we'll talk about, it was asked if the Columbia room was going to be moved out of the VAB. And he said, yes, you have plans to put it somewhere else. We'll talk about that here in a little bit there. But there's obviously a great guy, a great boss, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Bob Cabana, 4-time astronaut. When I went to introduce him at an event, I had 2 sheets of paper there, and he said, just call me Bob. I went to space a few times. That's all you need to say. Sound like him?
It sounds exactly like Bob. And that's, I can't overstate it, Mark, the quality of these people. I mean, I've had the honor to know Bob through multiple projects, and he's that exact same guy you just mentioned. He's the guy that comes in the office, sit down, talk to him, and you don't know if you're talking to your next door neighbor or a 4-time shuttle commander or the associate administrator of the program. Honestly,
12 years director of Kennedy Space Center in the transition of the Obama years to transform it into this multi-use space.
And Bob was a huge supporter, initial person with the concepts for Forever Remembered. So Bob is one of the gentlemen that came to me first up and said, hey, we want you to lead this project. But it was the inspiration from Bob and a few others in senior leadership to make this happen. So that's where it came from. And because, Bob got it, right? It's about the cruise, about the sacrifice. And he wanted to honor those folks that were his friends and that worked with and for him. And through his leadership, it became possible.
Well, you'll see when I end the show with my final image that, yes, he really enjoys the tribute there. And he's retired as the number 3 from NASA, and I understand he's going to live in the Merritt Island area. I know he likes to fly a plane out of the airport.
Yeah.
And he's been in our museum a few times. So
We're
if
lucky.
you run into him, say, hey, I come and stay curious with
Yeah,
Mark.
I will
And,
definitely be talking to Bob, and like I said, another guy that you're
yeah.
just lucky to know and to call a friend.
Really, he and Sergei Krikalev turned the lights on the International Space
Yeah,
Station,
yeah, first one.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, here's a bunch of hooligans you're with there.
More trouble.
Yes, and
More trouble.
of course that's Tom Jones, astronaut, and our friend Jonathan Ward, and Mike Leinbach. I don't know who the lady is.
And Mike's wife.
Okay, oh, that is Mike's
Yep,
wife.
Mike's
Okay,
wife, Charlotte.
Charlotte, good.
Yeah, and legends. I mean, just just amazing people. I just keep wondering how I got to spend time with these folks and get to know them. I mean, Jonathan, as you know, is a tremendous storyteller.
Yes,
Absolutely
he
fantastic.
and Mike wrote the
Yeah.
book, Bringing Columbia Home,
Right.
usually within arm's length of me somewhere
Yep.
around here. But and I call that the definitive book, to read about the humans, and what they got across in that book is that there was an eighth entity, and that was Columbia the bird.
Yeah.
I mean, these people, these orbiters were like personalities to them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone had a personality. So if we went to go power up in the morning, say Atlantis or Columbia or Discovery or Endeavor, it was like an old friend, right? You knew maybe Columbia started a little harder in the morning, or you kind of like your favorite car, right? You kind of got to know the peculiarities.
Yeah.
Well, the voltages are kind of like this, and the pressures are like this, or the fan speed. So you kind of got to know each of the vehicles and their little nuances and differences. But you're exactly right, and many of us spent so much of our life with the orbiters. I spent more time on board Columbia than I did my family at some points in time, because you were just working these vehicles, and so many of us had the honor to do that. So
Specifically, what were you doing?
a host of jobs as a fuel cell engineer, as a test project engineer.
Fuel cell engineers.
Yeah.
I actually know where those are, under the front payload bay,
Hey,
under the under the ground, under the
on the paper bay liners.
Yeah.
Yep.
on the right hand side, looking at the nose.
See,
right?
you got the fuel cells.
Somebody
Right there.
that Terry White told
And all
me
the
that.
tanks right behind them, right? But you got to know the vehicles, and it's a different story. But when we lost 107, it was extremely difficult. But one of the parts were hard was losing Columbia. For me personally, I had an association from when I was a kid with Columbia, but even as a working relationship, it was a loss of the vehicle. We all felt that because we spent our time and our passion and our love to take care of Columbia as well as we took care of the crew. So it was difficult.
The first one off the assembly line
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Very like Bob Cabana said at the tribute they had just for Columbia. She's a little heavy in the bottom, but she got the job done.
She was beautiful.
And two other Brad Book pictures here. I'm sure you've been suit and tie many times to go to things to talk. What was this event? I see Jonathan up there, and Mike's beside you. You're on the far left. Cabana's in the middle. Who else is up there?
Yeah, well, some folks from the Forestry Service, and we had folks from OSMA, Jerry Schumann. And that was one of the events I put together. So when I started this program back in I'm getting old now, 2016, I put together lessons learned events. And to show you another story about Mr. Cabana for a second, I put together this program, and one-of-a-kind program, right? So put this program, built it, and I want to do these events where I've got the entire workforce together and not only did Bob support me, but he says, I've got you for the program. I'll help you, whatever what I can do to help. And so, hey, I could use a moderator. Right now, you got the center director. You're the top of the totem pole at the Space Center. That's not typically a moderator job. And Bob's answer was, before I can even finish the sentence, I'll be there. That's the kind of support of a leadership that Bob gave and gives to people. And he jumped in. That was one of our events where we actually talked about Columbia, the lessons learned from recovery. Those of us out there in Texas bringing her home, and telling the folks what it was like to go do something like that.
Well, so the story goes that you had 4 of these events, and then before 2006, or in that time frame, right? Of course, the tragedy was in 2003, and in this little story about you, after years of bringing people through the room well, that was up in the you were convinced about the resources that this could provide to
Right.
inspire people, lessons learned. But you did these in different little mini conferences or something
Yeah.
before all this was built.
Right. So I used to have, I had the honor shortly after the accident to be in charge of what we call the Columbia Room, which is the Columbia Research and Preservation Office, and overseeing the artifacts of Columbia. And I would take people through there, small amounts of people. And over the years, people would ask questions, and you'd kind of get a certain flow going with the questions and answers you'd give. And that continued. And then forever remembered when I started that project around 2011 or so, 2012-ish, and then spending time really trying to look back at these instances and bring these to the national forefront and to the world, if you will. I kept thinking we're missing something here. We're missing something. There's another part of the story, and that helped me to come up with the idea for the Apollo Challenger Columbia Lessons Learned program, where we cannot just say that's the end of the story, but the story is just starting in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I humbly say, Columbia is still flying. Challenger is still flying. Apollo 1 is still flying. It's a different mission. The crews are still working for us, but they still have a mission to perform. And that mission is education and inspiration going forward and teaching the lessons learned. And to me, it's just so humbling to be part of something that if we teach those lessons learned that the crews sacrificed for, and we teach those to the current and next generations, how amazing in their name would it be to be more safe and successful because of their sacrifice. So really, I truly believe that the vehicles are still flying, the missions continue, and the crews still work with us.
How's the family's reaction to this?
Families have been incredible. You get so humbled in different things you get to do in life. And one of the most humbling things I've had the opportunity and the honor to do is get to know the families on a very close level, all the families. And I am humbled by them. The strength that they have, the determination, the love. It is absolutely incredible. They have supported very humbly what I do tremendously. They've been there to support me emotionally at times when it gets difficult. Through discussions like this. So they've been there on so many different levels, and they're on the front line of going through this. It was their family member, the sacrifice. And yet not only do they go through that on a personal level, but then extend that kindness to folks like me and others to help us process the losses we had and encourage us to go on and continue. So I can't say enough about them, and they're very much behind lessons learned. They really appreciate what we're doing. I appreciate them for that. And it allows us to keep their family members in the forefront of people's thinking.
We're talking with Mike Ciannilli here. We're just pleased to have him look around our museum as he's the caretaker of the remains of Challenger Columbia and keeping the dream alive in this beautiful display that we're going to take you behind the scenes of there. We want you to know and everyone to know, excuse me, the last 3 years we've done Stay Curious around NASA's darkest week, the last week of January. Mike, we've always taken the high road. In fact, Marty, I don't even think we've shown any of the destruction pictures, the explosion or anything like that. That's not what we want to be about. We want to celebrate the space workers' angst over this tragedy and how they all recovered from it, and celebrate the astronauts as true heroes that live on today. So last year was the first time that I put together a program on your Forever Remembrance on there. And we showed each of the, I think we did over 2 or 3 days. We showed each of the cases and just talked about what I naively knew about it. And now we've got the expert here. But we want to take you behind this and look at this gorgeous display. This is, as you approach it, of course, behind me is the Atlantis spacecraft. And you tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to put in here, right? So you're trying to capture the astronauts, you're trying to capture the vehicles, 14 people that we lost, heroes, friends, colleagues. So you're trying to capture them, you're trying to capture the vehicles, and you're trying to capture the story. That's hard to do, right? And you want it to be evergreen, so you want the story to be told to be understandable today and also in 50 years. So that was the challenge of how do you do it? So 50 years from now, people can walk through these halls and still understand what happened and the importance of it. So when you first enter, you have the vehicles. You have Columbia on the right. You have Challenger on the left.
Yeah, here we go. There's
and you have
Challenger on the left there.
Yep.
As we look down the row there.
And you look through. You have a display case for each one of the crew members. And the purpose of this was, and we call it Fallen Friends and Heroes inside this area, because we want people to really understand a sense of these folks. There's so much to them, right? And we often know that these folks are, of course, we know they're the heroes and they're brave and they're tremendously accomplished and smart. But we want them to realize too, people, these are humans. These are your friends and your neighbors. And there's your moms and dads. These were sons and daughters. And these are friends of people. So we're going to bring a sense of their element to them into this part of it. So you can see each of those cases has, and we worked very close with each of the family members to try to get a sense of, how would I tell about your family member? How can I share with the world a sense of their personality?
Mm-hmm.
You knew them better than anybody else in the world. Can you help us explain that? And so through their generosity and time and love, they shared artifacts with us that often these were owned by the astronauts, were in their homes or on their desks or on their bedside table.
We're
and
going
gave
to look
a window into them.
We're going to look at 4 of them up close here towards the in just a minute here. But
Sure.
you walk down, you look at the individual from high school mementos to aircraft you see they built, their family Bible even is in there. And then you turn the right-hand corner and your jaw drops.
It's hard, right? So we purposely put this off to its own space. And you'll see the lighting conditions. There's a lot of themology of the lighting conditions, why we did it. And this is where you come face to face with Challenger on the left and Columbia on the right. And you'll see the spaces themselves are pure black. We actually had lighting designers come in. I wanted to give the concept of these pieces were not in the same plane as you are. If I can explain that in a way, is it wasn't just a display behind the glass. It was almost letting you see it from a different dimension. It gave a spiritual feel because of what these pieces went through, what they represent. So you'll see nothing behind them. You don't see walls. You see nothing except for seemingly floating in air, letting you experience them. And it's a very quiet place. It's almost a church-like feeling when you walk into this particular area.
Absolutely a church-like feeling, and an astronaut described it to me exactly like that. Chachi, just first time I saw it, I moved to tears. Really, just being a space geek, that is one of the most. That piece of Challenger on the left was a famous picture of it being found and brought up by the crane on a ship. And I understand if you're responsible for this, you had to go get it out of the permanent silo that it's entombed in, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Was that a big deal to do, or
Well,
a lot of paperwork?
Well, not much paper because it's never been done before, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those, you got something to go do for the first time. And it's interesting, Mark, because in so many things I've had the honor to do, and other folks as well, I'm sure could say similar things, is you're doing things you never expected you'd do in your life. I remember living through the Challenger. I was a freshman in college, and remember what that felt like. I never thought years later I would have the honor and the responsibility to go where Challengers found resting places and go inside and actually go find the right piece to show and experience that. And it was a very emotional thing. It was a difficult task. Where
Not many people have had their eyes on that stuff. So
no, since it was
privilege.
sealed up, and it was it almost felt like I was living in a history book, and going back in time. And we have those moments in life. I'm sure we all do. Everybody that's listening today, you have those moments that are surreal. Like, am I actually doing this?
Yeah.
Is this a real moment? That's what it felt like. It felt like, is this real? I can't believe I'm doing this. And then you felt the weight of the responsibilities. We have to do this right, and we have to do this safely. We're honoring. This is Challenger, and this is the crew's memory. So we got that
So
piece.
there was
That
some
was
reverence at the scene. And
absolute reverence. Absolute reverence.
when was this? 2007, 2008?
We have to go back and look at the exact date when we pulled that piece out. This is around 2012,
Okay.
2013-ish, when
Alright.
we pulled the piece out. And
Well, there it is. It's just an incredible. As a photographer, you're trying to get the picture that no one will get, sort of thing. And I could see that on the side there, the dimensions of it, just so iconic.
it was emotional. I mean, I started crying when I first saw it. Others did as well. And it was just that your emotion was so overwhelming to see this.
What really got to me was the windscreen there for the windows of Columbia, and then when I approached it, Stay Curious fans, you get up there and you see that there's still pine needles in it and shards of glass. And oh my God, Chachi, that's just just unbelievable.
It's hard.
You guys didn't want to sterilize it at all.
No,
right?
no. And these windows actually came from the Columbia room. We had these on display originally in the Columbia room. And then when we chose, with Bob Kaman and myself and a few others, what items to pick, and Bob quoted it right. He said, "These are the eyes into Columbia. These are the soul of Columbia," and he was exactly right.
Wow, never thought
And
of
to
the
share
eyes.
those, and I can see, you can visualize when I see those. I see the crew sitting on the other side looking out. So it's a very emotional piece. We can all picture ourselves in a car or in a window at home, or anywhere looking out through a window. It's very identifiable, and each of those pieces, like you said, the shards of glass and even the little pieces, when these pieces fell, there's a story in the recovery, right? They fell from the sky to the ground, and they impacted the ground. So a lot of these are pine needles from East Texas. So when we got the preservationists on board, and I wanted to pull in the very best the world had to offer. So I was able to get the folks that preserved Titanic.
Really?
I wanted to get the best and was fortunate to be able to do that. So we had them preserve Challenger and Columbia. And, these pieces have a story to tell. So we didn't want to clean them up. We wanted to tell authentically what these pieces went through. And part of that story is what they did after the accident. So those preservationists actually painstakingly took each pine needle and each shard of glass and preserved each one and made sure it was going to be attached to that piece forever. So that piece as is, on purpose, to let the folks see authentically what it was like the day it was found.
Just amazing. One little more close up of it there. That the glass, the little pieces of pine needles in it, and really, you're looking into the soul of that spaceship there, and just incredible. I picked 4. Marty, okay, great place to have a question there, Marty, for Mike.
You've got a question from Dave Stange. Has there been any thought of taking an Apollo 1 Challenger and Columbia Memorial exhibition on the road across America?
Wow. You got some innovative audience
Dave
members. I like
Stange's
that.
our golden, our diamond
Yeah.
member. He's up in Michigan.
Okay.
He'll be down here
Wow.
for Shuttle Fest, though. But
Well, Dave, thank you for the question. It's a fantastic question. It's interesting. Part yes and part interesting. I'll explain the difference of that. At the 5th anniversary of the accidents of Columbia, 2008, we actually built a display with some artifacts of Columbia, and I had the honor to help take it around the nation to different NASA centers. And so the shuttle program manager, Wayne Hale at the time, it was his concept, and he wanted to make sure that everybody wasn't forgetting 5 years on from Columbia the importance of it. So we packed it up and went to every single NASA center around the nation. It took a whole year to do this. I probably spent more time in airports than I ever did in my life. But it was important, and we took it around the country and did that, which was great. So we have had some experience with taking Columbia around. We haven't taken Challenger or Apollo 1 around. But what I can tell you is having the honor to share this message with so many people around the country is there's such a desire to learn about it, and people are impacted by it. People want to tell you where they were when they lost Challenger, where they were with Columbia. It's a personal story, Mark, and that's, for us in this business, and you're part of the NASA family, right? So you get it, and we all get it. But when you have folks that are thousands of miles from the Cape, that you may not realize how connected they are to what we do, they want to talk about it. They want to see it. They want to hear the stories and what we can learn from it. So it's very humbling to experience that every time. So interest in something like that, I'm sure, would be quite powerful.
Hopefully, we'll get
Yeah.
around to doing that.
Yeah.
There's
You never know.
you never know on
Yeah.
there. We're going to look at 4 cases here. I just kind of chose at random
Sure.
for you to just comment as we're enjoying this conversation with Mike Ciannilli. He is the director of the Lessons Learned program for NASA. That's the Apollo Challenger and Columbia Lessons Learned. And we'll talk some other day about Apollo that you told me Kelvin Manning helped design
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
The
did.
assistant director under Janet Petro,
Apollo 1.
which is another jaw-dropping display out there. This is underneath, right beside Atlantis. The Apollo 1 is out at the Saturn V Center. So, but just kind of chose these 4 just to kind of give us an idea, and our viewers out there, of the kind of things that were in the cases out there. There's first one up is Krista. I didn't know hers was the first one. I guess. Oh wait, which way am I going? There we are. Yeah, here we are. There's the first one. Is KC
Yeah.
Kalpanachala there.
Yeah.
Born in India, but an American citizen.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, in KC, all these folks, I could speak for hours on them. I mean, they're Renaissance folks, and
Yeah, Renaissance
be-
people is a
yeah,
good way to put
isn't
it.
it amazing? I mean, to be so brilliant and so smart and so achieved, but have such a balance,
Yeah.
you know. And talking to KC's family, it became quite apparent of that balance of not only a love of flying in gliders and
So
such,
what do we
but-
have in there? Yeah.
So you have Jonathan Living Seagull's book, right? One of her favorite books of all time.
You
So-
baby boomers remember that
Right.
book?
So a
Okay.
book that she loved, a glider, love of flight.
a kind of good feel book about I think of life in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know, and a bird feeder, right? Now you think
Yeah.
why a bird feeder, right? From an astronaut, and this was the essence of trying to do this. Is when we first started it, you could have filled up these cases. You could make cases twice as big, 10 times as big, and fill them up with awards.
Right.
That was easy to do, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get a sense of that personality that's behind the hero and behind the astronaut stature. So she loved birds, and you'll see her binoculars. She was a bird watcher and loved nature. So her family talked about how powerful nature was for her and being in the environment and being outdoors. So we wanted to capture an essence of her, of a love of that, and hopefully identifying with kids and adults alike that can see that and say, well, I love nature, I love birds. And again, we try to make these so unique each case, so that everybody walking through, no matter how old you were, if you're 5 or 105, you would identify with these folks in some capacity and realize they're just like you. They might have done different things, but they're just like you.
KC's ashes are actually spread over a park in the Western America. I forget which one, but yeah, that was her request. So, well, what a fitting tribute that is
Isn't that beautiful?
on there. Of course, Krista McAuliffe, the teacher in space. Gotta have your comments about that.
Yeah, certainly. Krista, what an iconic figure in history, right? The first teacher in space
Mhm.
in 1986. I think we'll always remember Krista, and we always should remember Krista. And working with her husband and her children to get this, she was very much identified as being the hometown girl, right? And being the teacher, the local teacher. So we wanted to, being from Concord, New Hampshire, and for her college group, we wanted to give that essence of her, that she was the hometown high school teacher. She was that. She wasn't a worldly person. She was local. And that's what made her special.
Mm-hmm.
She brought that forward, and her love of teaching.
Connecticut. What's
Yeah, up in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
Framing.
yeah.
So her high school she taught at, the college that she went to, and then one of the coolest quotes, most powerful quotes that she said, "I touch the future, I teach."
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, talk about saying it all in a couple of words, right?
Yeah.
And it shows you the power of how she saw her career and her responsibility to teach the generation, which she still does through Lessons Learned now. But how I think it's really important for all of us, no matter what you do, if you're a plumber, if you're an astronaut, it doesn't make a difference. We all have responsibility to teach each other and to share.
Right.
So we all uplift each other. And Krista just crystallized that perfectly.
Well, she will forever be remembered, and you're doing a great job there. When anytime we post anything about Krista McCullough on our Facebook, it goes viral basically for us. But you chose her yearbook there, it looks like, and what's in the lower right hand corner that and the sayings there in the left. if
One
you
of the books
remember.
about her town.
Oh, okay.
So it describes her town, and she was so proud of that. You know, she was just the high school social studies teacher. That was her, not just in her mind. It's much more than that. But she just saw herself as, I do what I need to do. And then the Teacher in Space patch, which represents her as being the first teacher in space.
Which was a program that President Reagan initiated.
President Reagan initiated it, and she was chosen. She was chosen as the primary applicant. Barbara Morgan was chosen as the backup.
I mean, there was like 10,000 applicants. This is and 2 women rose to the top.
Rose to the
Barbara
top.
Morgan, who eventually went to space.
You know, and how many teachers out there are, I mean, I'm sure we all have our favorite teachers in high school or college, right? We'd all probably vote, for them. But to whittle through there, and it just shows you what made Krista extra special to become the finalist. And then when you hear her speak today and you hear the voice recordings and her video interviews, you get it.
Yeah.
You get it why she was chosen as the one that could represent all of the teachers and all of us, really.
And just perfect for her role in there. Got Elon Ramon, the only Israeli astronaut to go to space. He took, you chose a lot of, including, I think, isn't that part of his space flown diary?
Yeah, I mean, Elon was just another, I mean, again, we say legends, right? In Israel, what an iconic national hero.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, he ran military missions for Israel that were just, renowned for years for their nation's security. So he had a tremendous stature as a hometown or a national hero in Israel to start with before he became an astronaut. He already checked all those boxes. Now he becomes an astronaut to add to that. And the loss of him, right, as the first Israeli astronaut. And he tried to get a sense of what is that. So he was very proud of his home nation. So we got the flag of Israel to show that. We got medallions of things that represent him very personally from that level. And you drew to it, Mark. Each of the astronauts has a flight manual, right? And it's a checklist on orbit. They've got different checklists, of course, but they have checklists and they have diaries and things. Well, you can write in those, and you can write. We actually have pages that came back from Columbia. Pieces of paper, believe it or not, came back. And one of the things that came back were notes that Elon had made about the flight. What a treasure, right? What a treasure. This survived. So the original, that's a reproduction of it. The original, I believe, is in Israel. But that's the actual handwriting of what his thoughts were, so intimately known. If that page was never found, we never would have known, right? But it's his thinking and his feeling on orbit before the accident. So that's a treasure to have, and folks can read that and get a sense of Elon and what he felt like being up on orbit on board Columbia.
He says in that, and we quote him at our astronaut memorial service, that he said on the last day of their flight, he says, "I have become a man who works in space, lives and works in space." He felt that after like 14 days, he was one with what he was doing up there. And have you ever met his son, who's a beautiful singer and play?
Yes.
He did some music.
Yes, I have.
I forget his name, but I had the privilege of hearing him at an event.
He came down. Had the honor to spend time with him at the Space Center. Got to meet him. Actually got a note from him about a year ago. Tremendous family, and a family that's gone through tremendous heartbreak. Heartbreak between the loss of Elon's other son, who was a pilot, who followed in his father's footstep. Rona, his wife, who since passed away prematurely, who was just an amazing woman. I got to know, and then now their youngest, which carries on the legacy. So, again, these families, I cannot say enough about them. They're just incredible. Not only have the perseverance and strength to get through what they did, but to make something beautiful out of it and honor the legacy of their loved ones. It just really it's amazing.
Well, I have one last case to show here before we end our show, but I wanted to ask you, I'm getting emotional off and on talking about this, all right? You dealing with this on a daily basis. how it has to be emotional from time to time.
Yeah.
How do you deal
It's
with
hard.
that?
It's hard right now sometimes.
Yeah,
I
really.
feel the emotion. So you see little tears in the eyes. You'll know why.
No, it's real to
yeah.
both of us, folks.
Yeah.
This is it's not hard to talk about.
Yeah.
To me, it's not sad. It's just so important that other people realize this sacrifice in the world we live in today.
Yeah.
These 14 humans help change the way we live.
Yeah, it really is. It is hard. It's hard. And I remember years ago, Charlie Bolden, he was administrator of NASA, and it was him and I in the room together, and we were talking. He goes, "How do you do this every day?" And I said, "Well, everybody has a different way of doing things." I said, "To me, it's about the future. I focus on the future." So that's just how everybody has their methods, but that's how I look at it. Of course, it's a story of the past and present, but I see it as the future. And Columbia is a future story. Challenger is a future story. And it's a beautiful story. It's a hard story to tell, and believe me, it's a difficult story. But it's a beautiful story because there's another chapter. There's another chapter after 107. There's another chapter after 51L and Apollo 1. And that chapter is to share these lessons so we're going to help others save other lives. Not only in the space program, but thankfully, we reach a lot more folks. Over 50% of who we interface with now is outside of aerospace, with lessons learned for the Apollo Challenger Columbia program. So we're sharing this message with all kinds of industries and organizations.
That's good.
Across the nation, our national partners. So for me, it's a beautiful, inspiring story. It's a difficult story to tell, and believe me, some days are harder than others, very difficult. But you keep reminding yourself, this is about the future, and we owe it to them to tell their story. It's a responsibility.
It's an everyday responsibility. We have our humble little tribute to the Columbian Challenger over here, and I see it every day. And when that week comes by, to me, it's sort of like, well, I just don't think about this on that last week of January. I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's such a beautiful thing to keep the dream alive. We got Jonathan Ward says hi, Chachi.
Hey, Jonathan.
Okay, he's enjoying the show today.
Our world traveler.
Does that reveal my bold spot there?
Oh.
We got Micah McDonald.
Oh my heavens, from Micah.
All
Good
right.
to see you, my friend.
Harry
From college.
Morgan.
Great guy from college.
Is Harry Morgan a friend?
Yes. Wow. Okay.
All right, good. Some
Wow,
people
thank you,
found it. We got
everybody.
our regulars, Dave Stange, Steve Yoakum. Dave's up in Michigan. Steve
Wow.
Jay is up in the
Wow.
Lake Michigan area, thawing out. Mark Usiak and Tom Usiak photographed over 70 shuttles together. They're listening with a
incredible.
great interest. You'll meet them. They've been on Stay Curious. Bill Whiting. Doug Forrest is an artist that is in Los Angeles. Gary Gerald
Wow.
is a farmer in Collins, Georgia. He's going to bring us some Vidalia onions.
Nice
When
to
he
meet
does,
you.
I'll say, you like Vidalia onions?
I do.
I'll save some
Yeah,
for you there.
I'll take. I would love that.
And Keith
That'd be an honor.
Sewell. Keith's getting ready for the eclipse in Arkansas, where he's rolling around the country happily in retirement. Good old astronomy buddy, Keith Sewell there.
Well, thank you to all those people that said hello, and I want to thank you because the support you give to this museum and support of your interest in the program, even in a larger sense. We get to do what we do, launch rockets and explore space because all of you. And I mean that. That's not just something nice to say, that's the truth. With your hard-earned tax dollars, with your support, you allow us to do what we love to do.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're engaged with it and your interest, and in your own way, you're sharing the stories, you're sharing the enthusiasm, is much appreciated. So thank you for that. And it's a pleasure to have you saying hello.
Great. We have a question, Marty.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm going to preface my question with something you've been saying a few times earlier. We're still missing something. And what I think we're missing out there, and I don't know if you have anything to do with this or not, but we no longer have docents out there at the Santa Fe building or or Atlantis building. We have veteran space workers. Terry White, for example, expert on space shuttle. Gene Wright, who's here in the studio. Eric Baker. As far as I know, I'm the only docent around that still worked on a lunar module. And we're missing giving this information out to visitors that come to the Space Center. So I don't know if you have anything to do with the docents, but if you do, I recommend you do something and get it back out there.
Marty, thank you for sharing that. I unfortunately don't have anything to do with that, unfortunately. But thank you for your question. And I just want to say, in any capacity, Marty, you've got a knowledge of, like you said, the LEM, right? I mean, that's just incredible.
And SSME engines.
It's
too.
in SSM engines. That's incredible. And then there's so many more folks like yourself that have not only the talent, the knowledge, but the desire to share it.
Exactly.
And that's incredible. I mean, as a person that's worked in the program for 28 years, I love to sit down and listen to stories. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit and learn about the LEM, because it's so critical that we do that. So whatever method it is, I mean, you're volunteering right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I mean, I truly mean that, because if we don't do this, these stories will not be passed on, will not be shared. And what we've all done, and the sacrifice for those that didn't get a chance to share their story, or something might have happened to them, that's lost. That's not right. So sharing it every way we can is important. So I look forward to working with you guys and finding other ways we can be innovative, that we can, in our sphere of influence, change and get the message out even bigger. So I'll be calling you guys too for help.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
This has been a great program. I got one more window to show here that was kind of, you saw a lot on Elon Musk's, 5 or 6 items in there. And then this is just dominated by just a couple. Ron McNair's second flight was on Challenger. And tell us about his family in this display.
Back to that comment, Renaissance folks, right?
Uh-huh.
How amazing were these folks? And that was one of the hardest things, when I was working with the families, you only had so much square footage, right? Because we always had to take over the entire building to actually tell these folks' story. That's how much there was to pick from. So down selecting and trying to get the essence of the folks and the families were instrumental in that. But because there's so much to tell. And so 2 primary things come forward with Ron McNair, and his wife Cheryl was just unbelievably amazing, helpful with this. 2 things. One, you'll see is the karate outfit, right? And you'll see a black belt, right? So not only these folks became amazing scholars and amazing engineers and scientists, and by the way, astronauts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
But they found time to become a black belt.
Multiple black belts.
So I have enough hard time finding time to make dinner at night, right? We all have a hard time
Right.
squeezing stuff in, right? Or cutting the grass. These folks had time to go out and get a martial arts master's degree, if you will, on martial arts. So so that was actually Ron's gi, his black belt, and his sword. And so it just shows the depth of the talent of these folks. And then a picture of him on his first flight playing the saxophone, which he brought up. And Ron was really big into music. That was really important to him. And it was so kind for Cheryl to share that, how important it was for him to do that. So we wanted to capture a picture of him actually creating music on board the vehicle on his first flight. So again, a karate accomplished musician. I mean, how do you have time for all this? And that's the kind of people they are. And that's why when I talk to young folks, I'm like, go tackle every hill you can go get. Go live life, enjoy it. Follow your passions, enjoy them, become good. And you can see the astronauts did that, right? They followed their passions, not only their professional, but their personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really, really balanced, well-rounded folks.
Well, thank you for sharing the cases there. I just pulled out a few at random there, and I knew you beautifully bring back memories to you about the families that you dealt with there. What an enjoyable conversation we've had with Mike Ciannilli here, nicknamed Chachi, and I'm going to end the program, folks, with, of course, I've mentioned many times I've been a professional photographer, and for the Associated Press, I photographed a lot of athletes, governors, and a president or two. But what I'm going to show you is what I consider one of the most important photos I've ever taken in my life, for the emotion that I think it exudes. Bob Cabana was at the wake for Don Peterson, May 27th. Don Peterson died 2018. And they had a little wreath ceremony for him there under Atlantis. And then I watched him and Calvin Manning, his assistant, walk through the remembrance, all right? And I had my camera. I says, I'm going to follow this for a minute here. And I stood at the doorway. You turn right here as you're going down. You turn to the right. And I stood there as I watched Bob stand there for several minutes. and you can tell that's him, can't you?
Yeah. Oh, I can tell.
And I turned around, and he turned around and saw me, and he knew I was from Space Museum. I had my name on, and I said to him, I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't resist. I don't hope you don't think I was irreverent, but I took a picture because it was a moment, and I said, what were you thinking? You know, and he looked at me. He said, Mark, this place is like church to me. These are my friends, and I miss them. And goosebumps in my arms right now because my eyes teared up as this wonderful man walked away, feeling what he felt, you know, for his friends up there. And thank you for letting me share that.
That's Bob Cabana right there. That's the kind of guy he is.
And Amy Collins, she's saying here, both hurt differently. Challenger was grief and shock, and Columbia was grief and dread. She says there. So thank you for that comment, Amy. But yeah, that means a lot to me, this photograph there, because of the man there and what all that represents, and what a privilege, like you've echoed several times, and an honor it is for me to just share, just be a little pawn on this chess piece table here of the whole space program here, and do what we can to keep the memory alive. So.
Well, you do a great job of it. Thank you.
Any final thoughts for our watchers today? As I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and we welcome you back and provide this forum for you to keep us updated on some of the happy things that are going on in your lessons learned thing.
Lots of stories to tell about. No, I just want to say thank you. I mean, honestly, and come here the first time, I'd heard stories, and Mike and John, a bunch of legends and friends at the same time, had told me amazing things.
Yeah.
But to actually see it with my own eyes, it's impressive, and it's necessary. It's important. So thank you for that. And I look forward to sharing more stories. I mean, it's an honor to share my 2 cents, and I'm looking forward to watching other programs that you guys do, because again, like Marty was just saying with the lemon, his time, and everybody's got great stories to tell, and we all can learn from it and get inspired by it. So I'm just looking forward to our next show.
Great. What's that saying Reagan has in the back there? I have to paraphrase it. I can't. Can you read it up front there? It's
Marty's got
the future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. Yeah. There, I just remembered. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
And how powerful is that a comment to? And you'll see. So we had President Reagan. That's a quote from President Reagan. We had President Bush on the Columbia side. There's another quote on the other side of the wall. But it shows exactly why these folks did it, right? Fallen friends and heroes. And as you do that, so this is, and I'll just end with this, is you go through this phase where you're meeting the crew, and you're getting to know the crew very intimately, and then you turn the corner to the right, and you get to see the vehicles, and you become very spiritual with Columbian Challenger and the significance of the loss. And then another story for a different day, but I'll just preface it in 30 seconds, is then you're challenged with, well, how do you tell the story of what happened? Right, so the artifacts are from the day of the accident, but then we somehow got the return to flight, and I wanted to capture that. So you'll see as you turn to the left, there's a whole video montage we built that goes through the emotional recovery, I called it. You'll see the physical recovery, and then you'll see return to flight. So how all we as space workers and the nation grieved and went through the emotional recovery of this very tragic accidents. Then how we started to do the physical recovery, learning what happened, how do we fix it, how do we get the vehicles ready to go again, how do we get the program back on its feet, and then actually we end the exhibit memorial with return to flight and stunning 4K imagery of return to flight images of what it was like on both times when Discovery flew STS-26 and 114 after Columbia, what it was like to actually return to flight. And then when you exit it, purposely put at the exit is when you get out, you look straight up at the nose of Atlantis.
Yes.
So it's very strategically aligned. There's more nuance to this exhibit, but very strategically lined up how things list. So you get the sense of the sacrifice, the loss, the picking ourselves back up as we do in life for all kinds of issues, and then how we get back on the saddle, if you will. And then we look back up and we see a beautiful space shuttle hanging from the hooks, the last one to be flown successfully. So there's a lot to it. I invite them to come out and see the nation's memorial for this.
Absolutely. OV 104 is something to be seen hanging from the sky there. That is the backdrop for all of this. So, again, Mike, we appreciate you a lot. I know our Stay Curious watchers have really enjoyed this program, and we'll look forward to more visits by you here. And we look forward to sharing America's space history here on Stay Curious. So, Marty, we've got... went through all the notes there. Anything else to button up on our Streamlabs production there? Thank you for a good job surmounting a few problems. Tomorrow we're going to try to broadcast live at 4 o'clock from Spaceview Park at the Aussie event. We're not going to promise it. We got the computer set up. Trekkie Techie did her thing for us, so we're going to throw caution to the wind. And Marty and I try to pull it off tomorrow. If we don't, we'll post something up there. But it's Aussie 321 day all day, Thursday here on March 21st. And Friday we'll be coming back at you with probably a little bit of backyard astronomy. Yes, Marty?
Worst case is we just record it and play it back.
Yes, yeah. Worst thing is we'll record what's going on over there and then play it back for you. So, once again, another handshake to this great visitor.
Thank you, Mark.
My pleasure.
My
Great
pleasure.
to make you as a new friend.
And thank you, all of
And
you.
everyone here at the Space Museum, like me, been anxious to see you. We've heard about your program. We didn't even talk about all the awards this thing won and so forth, and you being on the Today Show and all that. We'll come back and do that later.
We talk about the important stuff.
That's right, we did. So thank you, Gene Wright, for being here in person and peeling off a few pictures. I know you might be seeing one or two of those on the social media that she's on. Until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying, I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.